Yes, people, welcome back to another stream, man. That's not
brother.
Brother, I got the cameras all mixed up there. Hopefully you guys are all doing well, man. Please make sure you've dropped a like on the stream if you've not done so already. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Of course, you can find Nobbins' channel. Links in the description. Make sure you go subscribe to him. Lots to discuss. Has Pep Guardiola finally woken up to the fact he can't play Julian Alvarez in this current setup? And Kovacic has to play. And there's lots to discuss. We're going to get into that in just a second. Big up to Subhotti, big up to Sai, big up to Carlos, Serble, Brandholt, Rhino, Lars, Jay Blee, JSH, Kipat's Kid, Arvida Zane, Asbestos Fan, Jonathan's there as well. Big up to KDB, Luan, Andrew, Omar's in the building. Big up to Justin there as well. Hopefully you guys are all doing well. Please make sure you've dropped a like on the stream, guys. Massively help support the channel. But yeah, listen, I thought yesterday, Nobbins, was a very, very controlled game. We did a little show last night, and part of me was wondering how much credit are we giving to City? How much credit are we giving to our players and our manager for the control that we had in the game versus just sort of like how bad were Newcastle, because they were poor. Like, I'm going to take the positives and say we controlled the game. That's what I wanted to see. But is it like how much positives can we take from that, given that Newcastle were pretty bad?
Yeah, Newcastle were weird, weren't they? I was talking about this earlier because that's their season done now, basically. The FA Cup was sort of like the last thing they had. They'll say they're still like challenging for like a Europa League space or whatever. Realistically, it's now over. They had nothing to lose, and they set up with like a really pessimistic back five. I know they've got injury issues. It was a weird performance by them. However, that being said, they weren't helped by the fact that we did stunt them offensively. Like, even when they came forwards, I thought we were good at getting bodies back. The midfield looked solid. I thought Rodri didn't have his best game on the ball, but off the ball, I thought he looked defensively good and strong, won a lot of challenges, I feel like, in vital areas. I just thought that the defense had a lot of support. I'm sure we'll get into his performance. That's what happens when Kovacic starts. And it was a really nice approach. I thought we approached the game perfectly. In my opinion, Pep got it wrong in terms of the lineup against Liverpool. I thought they should have started more conservative and more controlled. And that's basically what we saw for the entirety of yesterday's game. We see the value of having Kovacic in the side, especially when Grealish isn't available. And from like basically minute one, I never really felt that we were in proper danger, despite us playing really attacking football. Newcastle very, as I say, very, very blunt in their attack. Is it because they were bad? Is it because we were good? Maybe a bit of both. Yeah, promising performance. Newcastle aren't a bad side by any means at all. And in the end, we made it look very, very easy and very measured, and perfect way for me to for us to wrap up going into like the final international breaks. Yes, I'm going to take the positives from it, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I agree. I know a lot of people are saying, "Oh, Newcastle was shit, lads. Like, can't read too much into it." But like, we controlled the game, and listen, the players that they had out on the pitch, there's just some good players out there. They had Gordon, Isak, Bruno was in there as well. Like, they have some decent players. I feel like we should take the positives to that 100%. And definitely, that control for the first time, really, in a long time, I felt like that team resembled something like we saw at the end of last season with the control. That we didn't really give the ball away too much. And at times it was pretty dull, but I think that's how we need to play, especially in the bigger games. You know what I mean? And that brings me on to Kovacic, because I think most people agree that Kovacic probably should have started against Liverpool last weekend. I'm looking at the fixtures now. These are all comps. I'm just going to focus on the Premier League games here, guys. But I think now there's only a few matches here that I would not play Kovacic in. Arsenal, I would play Kovacic. Aston Villa, I would play Kovacic. Palace away, I'm toying with the idea of maybe just full sending De Bruyne and Foden in the midfield for that one. Luton Town at home, I don't think you need Kovacic in there, in my opinion. Spurs, which is going to be moved, I think you need Kovacic. Forest away, that's actually a tricky one. You might need Kovacic at Forest away. That can be a tricky place to play football. Wolves at home, I think we should be able to play Kevin De Bruyne and Foden. Fulham away, again, you should be able to, but you might play Kovacic there. And then West Ham at home, again, depends what's going on in the league. For me now, I'm looking at the fixtures here now to the rest of the season, and there's probably 3 games max, maybe 4, where Kovacic doesn't play. And the only reason I don't play Kovacic in these games is it's games where we're going to dominate possession. And
Yes.
possession is not going to be at a premium. And that's what I've been saying for some time. Whenever you're playing a football match, in my view, now to the rest of the season, where the opposition is a solid team like Arsenal, like Villa, or the Champions League games, you've got to play Kovacic. You've got to play him. In a game maybe at home against Luton Town, do you really need Kovacic in a game like that? My opinion would be no. I'd full send Kevin De Bruyne and Foden. So I think now Kovacic has got a massive, massive part to play to the end of the season. We signed him for 25 million. He's had a bit of an up and down year. Started off the season really strong. Then, if we're being honest, he kind of fell off and was actually quite bad for a while. Now he's come back. Now he's looking like he actually is clicked into this system. And I think a lot of people think that we actually need him in this side. So Kovacic now for me, listen, he's experienced. And I think he's got to come in that team and keep things ticking over.
No, yeah, I basically agree with I do agree with everything you've said there, to be fair. Yes. I don't think that should have to be the case. I don't think anyone was expecting when we signed Kovacic that we'd be at this stage in the season, we'd be like, oh yeah, he's arguably like an incredibly important player in that respect. So I think that is an issue that needs to be addressed in the summer window. But yeah, as things stand with the squad we have, 100%, especially if Grealish isn't available, in my head, Kovacic is like one of the first names on the team sheet. It's not even a question
on that. Can I just quickly come in on that? Because on the panel show last night, there was a little bit of a debate about whether or not you need Kovacic if Grealish is in the team. Now, me personally, I just said I'd still just keep running for Kovacic in the middle because I think you need that control in the middle of the pitch. I hear the argument that if Grealish is playing, then maybe you don't need Kovacic. Maybe that's a little bit OP. You don't need that much control. But for me personally, I just think we should just full send Kovacic and Grealish in those games and just, if you get to 60 minutes or whatever and you're struggling to create chances, then maybe you could take Kovacic off and throw one of your attacking players on. But do you think Grealish and Kovacic is overkill or do you think, or would you still run that?
It's definitely not overkill. It depends on the game. At home against Arsenal, for example, if I know that Grealish isn't going to be fully fit, for argument's sake, let's assume he's available and fit to start. I'd want both of them on the pitch at the same time, definitely, because that is a game where you use the word overkill. I think overkill in that context is apt, and we need it, to be fair. Maybe then you have a conversation about, does Gvardiol start instead to provide a bit more attacking flair down that left side? But that's a different question. But yeah, it's definitely not overkill in a bad way. It can be overkill in a good way. As I say, home against Arsenal, I would definitely like to see it. Doesn't have to be in every single game, but again, maybe away in a tricky Champions League game, like away at the Bernabeu, that could be a really good thing. Because again, that's a game where, let's be honest, we'd all be happy with a draw going to the Etihad, knowing that all we've got to do is like win that game. So that is a game where I would maybe like to see Grealish and Kovacic, as I say, home against Arsenal, if we still had to play at Anfield, or maybe we play Liverpool in like the FA Cup semi-final. I'd want Grealish and Kovacic to play. So yes, in these games where we clearly need that stability and we need that assurance, as we have this season, because I think that the lack of midfield stability has led into us experiencing these weird defensive lapses at times. Sure, there happen individual errors, but a lot of it stems from the midfield. So yeah, I don't think it would be a bad idea at all to feature them. But if one isn't available, the other must start, and it's not even a question. I don't really care what the game is at this point. I don't care if it's Luton at home. One of them must be starting at this point in the season where it's just so essential, and we just need to get back into our rhythm, or discover that rhythm. Even, I think it's a good question. I think I'm with you.
The other thing I'd say is when people are thinking about Kovacic and Rodri and look at that as a sort of defensive, and then they might say, "Oh, well, if you're throwing Grealish in there, that's just too overkill. You've not got enough creativity." The one thing that I would keep reminding people of is that when Kovacic plays, Rodri's given much more of a license to go further forward, and that's clearly evident. Rodri this year, I think someone said he's on 19 GNA, which is absolutely
something mental,
ridiculous. So it's not like you're playing Nigel de Jong and Kovacic. You know what I mean? Rodri is much more. He's got much more about him in attacking third. With his payload balls over the top, his long range strikes, his assist making. He's drive forwards, and Kovacic can then cover. So I feel that like when people look at that and go, "Oh, you got Rodri, Kovacic, and Grealish, it's too defensive." You've got to remind yourself that Rodri changes as a player when Kovacic is on the pitch because he's allowed to go further forward. You know what I mean? If Kovacic isn't there, he is a little bit more restricted. Obviously, if you play Rodri, Foden, and Kevin De Bruyne, clearly Rodri's not going to be getting as much involved in the attack as maybe when them two are not playing. Why? Because Foden and Kevin De Bruyne are there. He's not expected to get involved too much in the attack. His job is to make sure that he's sort of marshalling, behind and making sure that if any loose balls come in, he's there to get it. But when Kovacic plays, he's allowed to go further forward. So I don't personally have a problem with the whole Kovacic, Rodri, and Grealish thing that some people are saying. I think actually it's the way to go. It'll mean, I mean, for example, if you just look yesterday in that second half when Bernardo Silva went basically into the midfield, it was ridiculous. Newcastle couldn't get near us. I mean, you had Rodri, Kovacic, and Bernardo Silva. They couldn't get anywhere near those players. The way that those three kept the ball yesterday in that second half was ridiculous. If you throw Jack Grealish into the mix, then that's exactly the sort of thing that you want to see. And this is what we need to happen when we go to places like the Bernabeu. Yeah, when we go to the Emirates or the Allianz Arena, if we get past Real Madrid, which hopefully we will, we need to go there and we need to keep the ball and we need to ride out, tricky periods of the game. And those players are going to help us do that. So for me, I was very, very impressed yesterday. I didn't think, obviously, it was the greatest performance in the world, but I wasn't really looking.
It didn't need to be.
No, and that's exactly what I was saying. I wasn't looking for it to be a 6-0 performance. I mean, I would have took it obviously, but what I wanted to see from the team was what I saw, which was the very few chances conceded. You look really only the chance that they had was the Isak chance, which actually came from Ortega's misplaced pass. Other than that, they didn't really have any chances at all. We kept the ball fantastically. Passing was on point. The system looked good. And yeah, I mean, the only thing that really that was slightly disappointing yesterday is that we struggled to find Haaland yet again in another game. But at the end of the day, if you keep the ball that much, you're going to back yourself to create a chance. And if you put the ball in the back of the net, I don't really care. You know what I mean? I know, obviously, Haaland yesterday was clearly frustrated at the lack of chances he got. But if the team's winning, does it really matter?
No, it doesn't. And I don't really get why lots of people have been a bit down on how on our attacking performance yesterday. Like they're going, oh, we only scored from 2 deflected goals, whatever. But you got to remember, if we don't score those goals, then the whole game state changes and our mentality changes in that we need to go out and get a goal. So of course we're going to go out and create more. Whereas the state was, we're up by 2, irrelevant of how we got here, we are up by 2. It's not like goal difference is a factor in the FA Cup. Why would we, before an international break, let's not risk, getting red cards or injuries or overcomplicating it. Let's just kill off the game. And that's exactly what we did. The second half was boring to watch, sure, but it's, at this point, I want boring football if it means that we just get the job done. And again, if it was 0-0 going into halftime, I'm convinced in the second half we do create quite a long. We probably do create a bit for Haaland because we need to.
That's what I said yesterday. The one thing I would also add to that point is we've played very similar to that all season. You think back to the Liverpool game at home, Spurs game at home, Palace at home. We've gone up by a goal in a couple of those. Obviously, Palace it was 2, and then we've just kept the ball. The difference is, in those games, it didn't look like the treble winners. You know what I mean? When we watched those games, obviously against Palace, we were 2-0 up, we kept the ball, but there was an air of naivety about the way we were playing in those games where none of us were really confident, really, in those games that we was going to hold on to the victory. Maybe by Palace, obviously, at 2-0 up is maybe a slight exception. Yesterday, this is what I keep coming back to. Yesterday was the first time that I really feel like at 2-0 up, obviously I was still asking for a third, but I was pretty comfortable in that second half. And I was just like, this team is not bozo in it. You know what I mean? There was very few errors. Like I say, I thought when Bernardo Silva went into the middle with Kovacic and Rodri in the second half, I felt like, yes, they finally get it. They finally clicked. And that's what we're hoping for. Now, some people will of course, come out and say, oh, well, Newcastle were poor. Don't read too much into it. Fair dues. But, our next game's Arsenal, and we've got to try and take as much confidence from whatever we can going into that game. There's no point in going into that game going, oh, well, we only just beat Newcastle with 2 deflected goals. We've got no chance against Arsenal. Like, what's the point in doing that? Like, so I'm going to take the positives. That Arsenal game is obviously huge, and it'll largely decide whether or not we're going to be winning the title come the end of the season. But it's positive news. I like the fact that obviously Alvarez didn't get into the team yesterday in a position that he shouldn't be playing. And I feel that maybe now Pep has learned from his mistake. I'm also happy that he didn't risk Grealish. So obviously he was on the bench. That's clearly good signs though as well, because he's not in the England squad, is he? Jack Grealish, I believe.
No.
So he's now going to have 2 weeks to rest. And he was on the match day squad yesterday, which shows that he's probably fit. So listen, we're ready for Arsenal. There's no excuse. It's a big game, isn't it?
Well, it's well, of course, yeah, it's title defining. Obviously, it's a game which we now have to win. A loss is unthinkable. Draw, quite frankly, isn't good enough at this stage. If we want to win the title, we've got to beat them. And I think that this is a much better blueprint for how we could go about that, rather than the game in Anfield, where it might be like the total inverse of what we witnessed yesterday. It will be just interesting to see how available is Grealish, how available and ready is De Bruyne, because that will be a massive factor in terms of how we should probably set up and what might our best team be. Do you risk De Bruyne from the start, as we did at Anfield, and apparently he wasn't actually fully fit, he didn't have a good game? Or do you bite the bullet and go, well, it might seem mental, but maybe we actually bench him and bring him on with like 30, 40 minutes to go, and then see what happens if he makes an impact off the bench? Yeah. It's a tricky question to have, because I don't know what their injury situations are. Yeah, it's a must-win game. We've got some maybe a bit more confidence now. Arsenal struggling to beat Porto. Like, I watched that game, I wasn't particularly impressed with Arsenal against Porto. So yeah, it's a game we need to win, and hopefully the players will now have confidence. Hopefully Guardiola will now have confidence that, right, this is now how I need to set up. This is how I get the best out of these players.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We'll talk about this Arsenal game now, guys. Feel free to get your comments in the live chat. Interested to see what you guys are saying on this Arsenal game. What players would you play? What players would you drop? Please make sure you drop a like on the stream, by the way. 300 people tuned in already. Let's get those likes to 150 likes, guys. I need 35 people, 35 people.
You can do it.
To hit the thumbs up button, man. Let's get it to 150. Bill to Cooler with the super chat. It says City made the game boring, and that is good news.
100%.
So, it's about keeping the ball. You know what I mean? And at the end of the day, the opposition team can't score if you've got the ball. And far too often this season, we've ceded possession silly. I mean, if you think back to when Foden had the ball against Palace and he should have just passed it back to Rodri, and he ran into the middle, lost the ball, they go at the other end and score. Poor. You've got to keep the football. And like I say, keep saying it, but yesterday was the first time really that I felt like the team was keeping the ball, but actually like did it properly, rather than just sort of like winging it, which I feel like we've kind of been doing. Let's turn our attention then, bro, to that Arsenal game and maybe the system that Pep Guardiola needs to run, because he's going to have to drop a couple of players, which is going to cause some debate, because you've got the whole defensive situation about what you do with Akanji and those sort of players. You've got the midfield, someone's getting dropped there as well. If we sort of work through the team, and in fact, I'll bring up the tactical pad up on screen so we can sort of do it together. But let's start off with the defense, because Manuel Akanji has been in some absolutely incredible form right now. He's probably, I would imagine, in the form of his career. Another fantastic performance from him yesterday at the back, certainly up there with the man of the match shouts for me.
I thought he was man of the match, to be honest. So that was fantastic.
Yeah, he thrown him in against Liverpool as well, which Pep said it was for the pace, but one thing that he didn't mention as well was for the playing out from the back ability. Obviously, that Diaz is probably not as strong on. Who's dropping out here? Because someone's going to get left out who probably will be upset about it. Maybe even two, because Gvardiol played great yesterday as well. So how do you think that we should set up versus what do you think Pep is going to do?
Well, we all know Pep will start Walker. That is going to happen. I don't think it should happen. And if it was up to me, he wouldn't be starting.
You play Kanji.
I would play a Kanji because, as I would have basically all season, every single time this guy gets a chance, excuse me, outside of like the John Stones role, which isn't his fault that he's not as good as John Stones at doing that. Right back, right centre back, left centre back. Doesn't matter where he plays. He's always very solid and very good in the game. So for me, I'm playing a Kanji at right back. But let's all be honest.
Though, Walker, didn't he? He played well.
No, yeah, he did. Of course he did. But Stones wasn't there yesterday, and obviously Stones is going to start. So there's one less slot straight away. Obviously Dias is going to start. Of course he is. Obviously one of Ake and Gavardia was going to start. So it comes between, do you play Kanji or Walker? And yeah, sure, Walker played well. Kanji played better.
You just said Dias is definitely going to start. How can you be so certain of that?
Because it's Ruben Dias. I think he should start. I think that he's our best box defender. I think we're going to be having to do a lot of box defending in the game. I know that people have issues with like Dias maybe on the counter-attack. I think Dias has been playing well for this year. I know he didn't start the season well. I know he got dropped against Liverpool. I think that was more a pace on the counter-attack fear than it was an issue of his defensive work. I think that Ruben Dias is our best defender, by which I mean at direct defending, not necessarily on the ball, not necessarily on the counter, but in terms of like being a pure defender. Yeah. And I think that against Arsenal, we're going to need to be doing quite a bit of that. This is going to be quite an even game, I think. I think we're going to need our best defender there, and that's what Ruben Dias is for me.
I'll put Ortega in because obviously we don't know if Edison's going to be fit.
Scott Carson, hello. Disrespect.
Okay, so yeah, I agree. I think this is probably what he's going to go for. I think Akanji's going to get dropped, which is crazy. I think he's going to get dropped. If it was me,
are you starting Walker?
I don't know, man. I don't think I am. No, I think I'd drop him. If it was me, I'd drop Walker and play Akanji right back. I think.
Yeah. So are we doing our team here?
Yeah.
Sack off Pep. Honestly, yeah, sack him off.
Yeah, I think if I was the manager, I think I'd go there like
that. Yeah. I definitely agree. Akanji, Stones, Dias. The question mark for me is how do we what shape do we use and what formation do we use? Because if we're doing John Stones going into midfield alongside Rodri, then I agree with you that this is the defense. However, if we want to do more similar to what we did yesterday, where we try to pin the opposition back with our fullback / wing backs, and we try to we do get the left winger more into midfield, like Doku did yesterday, or as Grealish has done, or as Foden has done, then you play Gavardiol.
Yeah.
So it depends what you want.
Yeah, I actually said yesterday on yesterday's stream, don't be surprised if Pep throws in Gavardiol. But I think when push comes to shove, he'll go back to this system, which is
I agree, because it is Saka. I know Saka hasn't been brilliant this season, but he's still a danger, and Ake's got a very good history of dealing with him. So I agree. I think that the Gavardiol one is an interesting idea. I do think for this specific case, I do think Ake should play.
Yeah. Rodri will be in the middle with sort of Kovacic floating around. Because obviously I guess we both agree that Kovacic has to simply play this game. So this is where it gets interesting because if we put Haaland in there, so that makes it easier, and we put Grealish in there because we both agree that Grealish has to play.
Yes.
As you can see, someone's getting dropped here.
Bernardo or Kevin.
There's only 2 spots. And there's 3 players, which we all probably want to see play. But obviously, you can't, unless you want 116, we can't play a 12 player. So, what would if you're the manager here, who are you dropping, bro?
Well, Foden definitely plays, so let's get him in the team. That's not a question for me. He's not dropped. There is no question of whether he's getting dropped.
I'll pop him there.
But for me, if in a world where Grealish is fully fit, he must start. In a world where we've seen Kovacic improve the City side, Kovacic must start. That's non-negotiable for me. And this is where it comes down to fitness. If De Bruyne is fully fit, I think you've got to drop Bernardo.
Yeah, but I agree.
If De Bruyne isn't fully fit, as he according to Pep, he was carrying a knock at Anfield. Maybe that's why he didn't play so well, whatever. And maybe I'm making an excuse for him, but that's the word of Guardiola, not me. If he's not fully available, if he's not fully fit and therefore isn't going to be at 100% and therefore might actually be a detriment, then De Bruyne shouldn't start and he should come on in like the last sort of 30 to 40 minutes.
Yeah.
But if he is fit, then of course De Bruyne starts because it's Kevin De Bruyne. And we should be looking to people look at Foden and go, oh, you're showing Foden out to the right. You're a massive central proponent of him. And yes, I am. However, there's nothing wrong with Foden being played out wide as long as he's not given the role of being a touchline winger, as long as he's got that freedom to rotate with De Bruyne. The game I always go back to is that Newcastle game when De Bruyne came on, and sometimes De Bruyne was at right wing and Foden was in the middle. But what you've just put up on the screen there, if everyone's available, that for me is the best team. It's defensively, that's our treble win in defense, first and foremost. Ortega's got to play because Ederson's not available. Rodri is Rodri. Kovacic must play because we see the value he adds. Grealish must play. We see the value he adds. De Bruyne, Hall, and Foden are our game winners. They are the game breakers. They must also start. I don't. For me, I know it sounds harsh dropping Bernardo, who's so good. But he's not actually been that brilliant in recent weeks. I think it's fair. Not been bad, but certainly below the standards I would expect from him. And again, it's harsh, but I can't drop our best player in Foden this season in Foden. I can't drop our best player generally in De Bruyne. I can't not play Grealish and Kovacic when we've been crying out for stability and the rest of the team picks itself.
Yeah, no, listen, I completely agree. I think this is the team that I would run. I don't, it's unfortunate for Bernardo, but like I say, Bernardo's probably done himself a slight disservice because he's not played great this season. So it was always going to be tough to drop one of these. You're dropping Kevin De Bruyne, that's going to be a tough call. You're dropping Foden, best player this year, that's a tough call. So it was always going to be a tough one to drop. And, I would even say, even though Walker's not been particularly great this season, it's going to be tough to drop someone like that who's your captain and an experienced player. So at the end of the day, you have to make tough calls when you're playing a match like this. But I agree. I think this is how I would go. John Stones pushing into midfield and almost be given maybe a bit of a free role to sort of just roam around and find some space will be seriously interesting. But I think that team is what I would go for. I think it's good enough to get the win. You got the creativity in there with De Bruyne and Foden. Listen, I don't think this is going to be a game that's going to be a high-scoring game. I think this is going to be another tight game, just like it was at the Emirates, and you're going to need a little bit of luck. Remember in that game, you conceded
that should have been a 0-0.
Well, it should have been a 0-0, but obviously their goal was a deflected goal. We also had 2 shots cleared off the line in the opening couple of minutes as well. So it's going to be it's a game of tight moments, and you need a little bit of luck. And that day we didn't get the luck. Arsenal got the luck, and they got the 3 points. And GG's to them for doing that. At the Etihad, I think it's going to be another game where it's going to be very close, going to be very tight, and it's in those moments, are you going to put the ball in the back of the net? And this is where you need, your Kevin De Bruyne, your Foden, your Haalands to be proper on it. And I really like the balance that team has. It has the ability to keep the ball when you're under pressure with the likes of Grealish, Kovacic, Rodri, De Bruyne. You've got that sort of that impact in De Bruyne and Foden. You know what I mean? Who can get you a goal, and then obviously you got your finisher. And I really like the back line. The back line there, Ake, Diaz, Stones, Akanji. That looks pretty solid. Akanji's not played too much out on that right-hand side this year. I think it was one game that he played in the Cup maybe a couple of weeks ago, and he looked really good, and our build-up play from that right-hand side was fantastic. So, it's going to be interesting to see what he goes with. I don't really see... I mean, to be honest with you, the only thing that's definitely not going to happen is Akanji at right back. He's definitely playing Walker. We know he's going to play Walker there. Other than that, I don't really see what else he could change. Of course, Bernardo Silva is always potentially going to play, but who's he dropping? Who's he dropping if you play Bernardo?
Exactly, and that's where the fitness might make up his own mind, because if there's even like a slight possibility that Grealish could aggravate the injury or De Bruyne, then he's hopefully not going to risk starting them, and maybe that will make up his mind for him.
Not Grealish, bro. Grealish has been in training 3 or 4 days now, and he was on the bench yesterday. So another 2 weeks, he's going to be fine. It's the De Bruyne one, isn't it? Is De Bruyne going to be fit? Is De Bruyne going to be fit? People are saying, like, obviously he's got this little groin injury and whatever. If he is actually injured, is he going to be ready? But you know what? In a game like this, I think you've got to risk him. Personally, I think you've got to, because at the end of the day, the league's on the line. The league's on the line. And I know people will say, no, don't risk him. You've still got the Champions League to play for. But fucking hell, the league's right in front of us here. We need to win this game. So for me, I just think you have to gamble with this one. And you've got to throw Kevin De Bruyne in there. I would have said if Grealish maybe was a little bit more delayed on his return, maybe he could have played Bernardo Silva on the left, like he played in there a couple of weeks ago or in a recent game. But Grealish is definitely gonna play. So yeah, man, I am looking forward to it and to see what's going to happen. Big up to Chicken Wing with a super chat. Says, do you guys think we're using the right tactics with the wrong players? What's the point of wing backs if Walker and Gvardiol can't pass or cross the ball? Well, Gvardiol for me is slightly different because Gvardiol, he doesn't get into crossing positions where he's running onto the ball. When he gets the ball, Gvardiol, right? So if I whack Gvardiol on the screen here, where is it? Here, right? And obviously Grealish will be there. Gvardiol usually receives the ball square, like he'll receive the ball like that, right? So then the ball's at his feet, and then what he's looking to do then, yeah, as you've seen this yesterday with Foden, in fact, he tries to whip the ball into a De Bruyne there, or maybe he'll be a little bit further back, maybe like there, and then he'll try and whip the ball into Grealish here. The difference is with Walker, it's a fair point on Walker, to be honest with you, because if we get Walker on the pitch, and you've seen this time and time again yesterday, this was Bernardo Silva. So Bernardo Silva would have the ball there, right? Where's the ball? There like that. And then the opposition player would be there. So that's the left back, this yellow guy, yeah? And then basically that guy's obviously going to be sort of pushing towards Bernardo, leaving all the space in the world in this area for Walker to whip a crossing. And we've seen that time and time again. Walker obviously had, I think, 4 or 5 crosses yesterday because he got so much space. So I agree that maybe Walker, yes, it's probably the wrong player for that. Although we don't actually have a player who can play right back, who can put a cross in. Obviously, you can force like a Nunes in there, but I'm talking about a proper player. You know what I mean? We've got Jan Couto on loan at Girona, but no one at City can really do that. So yeah, I'd agree with the super chat. I'd agree with Walker that yes, it's probably the wrong player for that type of right back. Gvardiol, not so much, because Gvardiol doesn't really run onto it in those sort of situations where he's running onto the ball. And even when Gvardiol gets the ball in sort of this area, again, he always seems to receive the ball very square. So he's not running onto it and crossing it. Do you get what I'm saying? I don't know if you have a different opinion on that, what I just said there.
No, yeah. So, I think you're both right, to be fair. Just, and this was something I was discussing today. I think that my theory is that Pep's plan this season was to do the normal 3-2 shape, with Stones pushing into midfield, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I think his long-term plan, i.e. next season, his plan was to do the shape which we've seen where the full-backs become the wing-backs. Now, what my theory for why that is the case is because that links into why was he so desperate to keep Walker here? Because he wanted to trial that system this season. Not for it to be the go-to, but to trial it. And to do that, he didn't want to splash out 50 to 70 million pounds on an offensive fullback. So it's like, right, I've got Walker there. I'm going to have a chat with him. We're going to keep him. We're going to experiment. This would be sort of like a transitional season as an experiment. That plan sort of went out the window a bit when Stones got like a massive injury. So he had to sort of accelerate that idea. And we saw really early on, like I think it was like the first home game of the season, actually, Walker going into that right wing area. So my theory is that he accelerated that. And because then I asked the question, well, if that was the plan, why weren't we even linked with an offensive fullback in the summer window? I can't really remember us being properly linked with anyone, to be honest. Like, who do you think is like an overlapping?
Yeah, the only right back we was linked with really was Pavard, and he's not really someone that you'd associate with.
Exactly. He's got a history of being a centre back. Yeah, we went for Gvardiol, who can play at left back, but you wouldn't say he's a left winger. He's a centre back at left back. So that's why I think that we weren't linked with anyone when perhaps we should have been, because I agree with German Chicken Wing that we are trying to play that system it was probably best on show against Arsenal at the Emirates, actually. The amount of times Gvardiol got into those spaces where he could pop in a dangerous cross, but he's a centre-back, so his crossing wasn't that good. If that was someone, like, an offensive fullback, like an Alphonso Davies, for example, who's very good at getting into those positions and crossing from there, it's a totally different story. So I do agree, and I think that we will see in the summer us bringing in at least one really offensive, creative, attacking fullback. Probably a left back whose game plan is all about getting into those areas and crossing. I think that is what we're going to see, and again, that's why I think we've accelerated this and why we're seeing Walker so much, because Stones has been injured. Therefore, we've not been able to go back to the trusted Stones in the Stones role situation. So yeah, I agree, and Frimpong would maybe be an example of that. Personally, I think we need a left back more so, because we've got Walker who can do it. Whether he can do it well, he can do it. There's also, as you say, a Couto at Girona. That could be an option on the right. For me, we need to sign a left back, an offensive overlapping left back.
Miguel Gutierrez.
And someone who is like ready now, like they've got to be ready to go now, like a big money signing. That's what I'm after.
Miguel, he's ready to go right now, bro. He's literally
ready to pop off.
He's fighting for the La Liga, bro. And I know they've had a little bit of a bad month, Girona, but they're still fighting. And Miguel Gutierrez is
either one. Is he your favorite?
I think he is, man. I think he's got the ability, and he can invert as well. So if Pep did want to revert back to the inverted system with the left back, like Zinchenko era, he can do that as well. I think Miguel Gutierrez, I think he could be the one, man. He could be the one. Otherwise, you've got to go for someone like Alphonso Davies, man. But he looks like he's going Real Madrid, innit? So, and I know Alphonso Davies has previously said that he'd rather play Premier League than La Liga, so maybe it's available, but I think Miguel Gutierrez could be the one.
Certainly someone of that profile. You get what I mean? Like, it's got to be someone who is comfortable defending as a left back, but is comfortable attacking as a left winger. So an offensive fullback who's still solid defensively. Walker from, I know he's a right back. Walker from 2016 would have been a very good shout, for example. Obviously not the current Walker who's much more defensive minded. That's the sort of player we need. And that opens up loads of other avenues. That also means that Grealish can play in the middle more so, because you got the left back going to left wing. So Grealish can play at left central midfield, and we all know how good he is there.
Or he'll play left wing, but be more inverted.
Sorry, that's what I mean. Yeah. So
he played like a Luton. Remember the Luton game away from home? Yeah. And he was much more sexual. He actually had a pretty good game, to be fair. So yeah. Here's a question though. So if we sign a left back, do you think then one of our centre backs leaves? Because at the moment we've got no left back, and that left back's being shared between two centre backs. So we're managing to keep all our centre backs happy at the moment because they're all playing. If you sign a left back, then all of a sudden that left back spot's probably going to be. Let's say, for example, we get Miguel Gutierrez, right, or Grimaldo, whatever. Just say let's just say for sake of argument, we get Miguel Gutierrez, and he shares the position with Ake or Gvardiol. The other one of those players that's no longer playing left back is then going to be fighting out for two centre back spots with a Kanji, Diaz, Stones, the other guy, and then still obviously that other player who's playing left back, who's actually a centre back, will still want to play. So, do you think? Because at the moment we've obviously got 5. Do you think that maybe then we could be at risk of losing a centre back, but we might be able to get away with it because they're not playing left back anymore? They're only playing centre back. I just think 5 centre backs will be too much, and surely one will end up leaving.
Yeah, it is. It's a tricky one, obviously. Adding another defender. I think it's worth noting that in my head we would have a number of very good functioning systems. We wouldn't always be using that left back system. So sometimes the left back wouldn't play because we'd be using the Stones one, and in that case you'd want the left back to actually be more of a centre back. So Ake and Gvardiol would play. So I do think it could work. I do think there's scope for it to work and the squads to still be happy. It helps that Akanji can play basically anywhere. It helps that Stones can play at right back as well if needed. And you've also got to remember that City play like 50 plus games a season, so plenty of players get a lot of games at the end of the day. And well, I think Walker will be gone sooner rather than later. That's for sure. Will it force a current defender out like in the near future? I'm not entirely convinced that it would, because we've lost Cancelo and Laporte and only really brought in Gavardio, didn't we? So we're still technically at a -1 in that respect compared to like, the a few seasons ago. So I think you can definitely squeeze one more in, I think.
I find it interesting. Are you thinking that we're going to see a change maybe of system again next season, and we might go back to sort of the wing backs, because obviously we've not seen that at City for, well, for some time really. Because even when you had Cancelo there, like,
Yeah,
he's like,
he never held the width. He was more from the center, wasn't he,
nah,
with Cancelo?
yeah, not really. He always liked to drive in field, and
Mm.
you're thinking probably the last time we had that was probably Benjamin Mendy. And how many years ago was that? That was fucking ages ago, wasn't it? You know what I mean? So yeah, I mean, it will be interesting to see. It feels like a decade since we had actually a left back at the football club and that width, but it
Mm.
certainly feels like, yeah, maybe Pep is about to reinvent the system again and maybe go back to the old school wing backs. And I think you have to do that. I think Pep Guardiola has to do that, because these systems, people find a way of stopping them and preventing them. And this is how you stay successful at football, by continually changing. And sometimes you'll change and it'll be a bad move. It won't work, right? But obviously, when you've got someone like Pep Guardiola, more often than not, it will work. And people asking there about Frimpong. Yeah, Frimpong's obviously an option. He's been linked with a move back to the Premier League quite a lot. And obviously, yes, he is also homegrown. He come through the academy. So that would obviously be a plus to see him there. You got Miguel Gutierrez on the left-hand side. You got Yan Couto currently on loan at Girona, but apparently having issues with getting him to sign a new contract. I think Real Madrid are sniffing round him. Yeah, you got Ait Nouri, says Austin from Wolves. Ait Nouri's a fantastic player on that left-hand side as well. And I actually think that he'd be really good under Pep Guardiola, because he's great on the ball. I think he's going to get a big move this summer. So yeah, listen, I'm super excited about it. About the summer. I think this summer transfer window is going to be big. I know I say that every year, but I do genuinely think this is the year that we have to sort of make a bit of an investment, because last year, if we're being honest, it wasn't. Gvardiol was a good signing. Nunes, Kovacic, not particularly great for what we're looking for in terms of excitement and really sort of breaking into that first team and dominating for years to come. Doku's clearly one for the future. He's not for the here and now. So I think this summer, I think they've got to go big, bro.
No, I agree. Well, and Harry's just said it in the chat as well. I was just about to say, I think it's going to be, in my head, it's going to be similar to 17-18 in respect of the amount of players that come in respect to the quality of players that come in as well, and the subsequent impact it has on the team. Because I know we've had, I'm not saying we've had bad windows since then, because obviously we had one window where we signed like, Rodri and Cancelo at once, etc. But in terms of massive mental windows, I can't really think of one outside of 17-18. 18-19 we brought in Mahrez, didn't we? 19-20 we brought in, Cancelo, Rodri. That they were the main players. The subsequent season we brought in Ruben Dias. Then the season after that, the main one was like Grealish. Then after it was Haaland. I feel like we haven't had one where we've brought in like sort of like 3 or 4 players of the ilk where it's like these are first teamers and these will go in immediately. I feel like we've outside of like the obvious ones like Diaz and Haaland, I feel like we've been signing a lot of more like projects / squad players, if that makes any sense. Like Gavardio, for example, unbelievable player, fantastic. Ultimately 21 years old, still a player that you describe as more of a project than sort of like, he's not Van Dijk, he's not ready to go now sort of player. He's a player we're going to need to be patient with. Mateus Nunes, again, Doku, very good players. Are they the finished article? Obviously not. So there's still a long way to go. These are project players. So certainly not that window. And I say, unless there's one I'm just like mistaken on, can't really recall where again we sound like 3 or 4 absolute nailed on like first teamers who just go in and they immediately raise the ceiling and the floor of this team. Even that, there you go, like only one there, Jack Grealish. Only big. I know Ake turned out good, but again, only name there, Ruben Dias, another one that the season before, I think it was Rodri and Cancelo, who again came very good, but even they need like a season to get used to the play. And even though it's only 2 players, 18-19, it was only Mara. 17-18, it was Edison, it was Walker, it was Mendy, it was Bernardo Silva. I know Mendy injury issues and off-pitch stuff, but that's at least 4 players there who were supposed to come in and just immediately improve the starting 11. We haven't really had a window like that since then, and that's 6 years ago.
What would your ideal window be this summer?
5 players.
Okay.
We sign. I'm not going to name players. I'm going to name like roles/positions. We need a 6'8" hybrid.
Kimmich.
Spoilers. We saw him on the pitch yesterday. We need
Bruno. You want to sign Bruno?
Yeah, definitely. We need a more of a utility 8 player who's very good at working in big spaces. We try to sign him in the summer.
Okay. You name the positions, and I will just name the players then.
Okay, yeah. So 6'8" hybrids. Who's that player?
Paqueta. Bruno or Kimmich.
Yeah. We need this like fluid 8 player who is like really flexible and can sort of like replicate like Gundogan's creativity, and also be stable in a double pivot. And we try to sign him in the summer.
Paqueta.
Yeah. We need an overlapping, in my opinion, left back.
Miguel Gutierrez.
We need. It depends on the Savio situation. We might need another 2-footed, 2-sided winger.
2-footed. So he has to play both sides.
Ideally, sort of like how Doku can play both sides with both feet. Doesn't have to be. We certainly need another winger, in my opinion. Maybe more so right than left.
I was just to say which side is preference. So right winger. So you want a right winger who can play left wing?
In an ideal world. Doesn't have to be. Could just be a right winger.
Cole Palmer.
Okay. And the last one is sort of, it's not an essential because we've had a discussion on the defense, but I do still think there is scope, especially with a future of moving on Kyle Walker. In my opinion, there is a scope for a more utility-based defender who can play right centre-back/centre-back, of which I don't expect you to name a player because the player who I'm thinking of is like not known. But that's the sort of ilk we need. We're going to lose Phillips. We're going to lose Cancelo. Sergio Gomez, I don't know what's going on there. I do think we're already operating with a very, very tiny squad. I know people are saying who's going to go, but I know Pep loves a small squad, but the squad right now is ridiculous in terms of size. I think we need more bodies. So yes, we're going to have more bodies, but I think we need them.
Yeah. No, that's defo. Hey, yo, guys, W's in the chat, man.
I like your picks, by the way.
My what?
Your picks, the players you named.
I thought you meant like my nudes. I was like, what? This guy's hacked into my Google Drive. It's got my nudes.
So you've just now revealed that you have nudes on your Google Drive.
Yeah, I don't have nudes.
That's what someone with nudes would say.
No, I thought that's what you meant. Though. I thought when you said pics, I thought you meant like
I've big brained him. Yeah, he's revealed it live on stream.
Stop trying to out me, man. This guy, bruh. LBins is just LB now, yeah. But I've got to come to this dono, guys, because it's $100 donation.
Crazy.
We cooked Liverpool after the last international break, and it's Arsenal's turn to get cooked, and we start our run. By the way, happy with the Champions League draw. The 3 teams that I want to avoid in a one-off game are Madrid, Bayern, and Arsenal in that order. Double treble. City till I die from HSK with the $100 donation.
Crazy.
I don't see him for a while, HSK, and then they'll just come in a random stream and then just go, boom. I'm still here, boys. You know what I mean? So big up to HSK. Thank you very much. I know you support all the channels, man, and we do super appreciate it. Thank you very much for the donation, bro. Listen, because obviously I didn't see you in the stream the other day when I did the Champions League draw, but I like the Champions League draw. I think the Champions League draws, I think we actually needed that. Listen, obviously it might just be copium, but I think this team needed difficult games to wake them up because I think the team's been sort of sleeping a little bit. So it's because the players will know now. They're not going to get away with playing like they did at Anfield against Real Madrid, Bayern Munich and Arsenal. Otherwise, you'll be out of the competition. So I feel that we needed that, in my opinion, to sort of pick it up a little bit. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm buzzing about it. I want to play the best teams. We beat them both last year. This time it's in reverse order. And if we do get to the final, again, you'd be expecting to beat whoever gets there, whether it's Atletico, PSG, whoever it is. You'd be expecting it to beat it. I actually did want Real Madrid though in the final. I wanted to clash on a 1v1. I did, but
Have they ever lost a Champions League final? I feel like they haven't.
I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't
Oh,
remember
no.
them losing one since I've been watching football
No.
since 2008.
Certainly not in the new. Certainly not in the new format. Anyway, like
Yeah,
which
no,
is like from '93. I don't
remember.
think so.
I don't remember. But yeah, listen, it's certainly interesting. Big up again, HSK. Thank you very much for the very generous
Crazy.
donation. Massively appreciate it. Big up to LB as well. Says Musiala will stay at Bayern, unfortunately. Yeah, I think I just seen your message, bro. I think you put it in the chat then to say that apparently Fabrizio Romano said Bayern Munich are opening talks with Musiala about a new contract. So the thing with the Musiala deal is I don't think it's about money. Because you're not telling me that they're running his contract down for 2 years because they're not willing to pay him the money that he wants. So I think this is probably more about the sporting project. And if you listen to his interviews in the past, he always speaks about the fact that he wants to win Champions Leagues and stuff. And at the moment, Bayern have not got past the quarter-final stage for the last 3 years, I think, before they won it 4 years ago. So they're struggling at the moment. Obviously, they're likely to get to the semi-finals from their point of view. They'll expect to beat Arsenal, but I mean, the one thing I would say is if Musiala stays at Bayern, surely they're not going to sign Wirtz as well. And then Wirtz might become available. So, I expect either Musiala or Wirtz will be available this summer. And if either of them are available, I think you've 100% got to try and get them because they're just generational talents, in my opinion. And obviously, Kevin De Bruyne is getting on now. He's 33 in the summer and he keeps on getting injured. And then he says Kvaradona. I think Kvaradona be a super at City. I think he's a real sort of Pep Guardiola player. By all accounts, this year he's not lived up to the expectation of last year. He's dropped a little bit, but then so have the whole Napoli team. So can you really put that down to him? He's also going to cost a lot of money because you know what Napoli are like, and will we even entertain doing business with Napoli? I think for the Kvaradona deal, if you want to sign him, you just got to pay what they want. Otherwise,
negotiating with Napoli is like pulling teeth. They're like the Italian Spurs in that respect.
Now, 100%. Apparently, Leicester have just pulled one back against.
It's 2-1, I think. Yeah, Disassi with the own goal.
Yeah, disaster or whatever they fucking call it.
Unless he's at the Etihad and then he plays like fucking Nesta. Then
I know. And the only thing that I didn't really mind about that is because Mangala did do it to Chelsea.
It's a good point.
Whilst it is frustrating that Disassi decided to turn up and play, like you say, prime Nesta at Manchester City when he's normally bad, Mangala did kind of do the same thing for City against Diego Costa.
That was unbelievable, man.
Yeah, we all thought we'd sign like the next greatest defender, and he didn't quite turn out.
Here's Vincent Kompany's partner for the next 5 years. Like next game, own goal, done.
I know, it's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah, listen, the transfers is going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what City do. I do think we need to spend a bit of money and reinvest the squad. Here's a question though: do you think that maybe we'll have to let one of Kovacic or Nunez go in the summer? And I know it's a bit of an interesting question because we've only just signed them. But if we do sign Paqueta, is there enough space in the squad for all these players? I mean, Nunez is hardly playing anyway. If you add Paqueta in there as well.
Like in my head, Bernardo's leaving this summer. Yeah, because he got the 50 million release clause, so that opens up a space.
Okay,
Phillips is going to leave as well, so that's going to open. So that's 2 players going, and so in my head 2 players.
But Phillips never played anyway.
No, but he should have done. You get me? He should have got more minutes because we need to give Rodri rests sometimes.
I know, but how does that help Nunez? Because Nunez isn't going to be the guy who plays there.
It might not, to be fair. And look, maybe, but I don't see Kovacic. Kovacic is not a long-term signing. I don't think he'll be here longer than a couple more years. Nor would I expect he's going to have the game time of that. It's a tricky one. It is a tricky one, but
I really, you know what's annoying about Nunez? I really like him.
No, I like him too. Yeah, I think he's going to get better. To be fair.
I know a lot of people don't rate him in that yet, but I actually like him. I think he's a breath of fresh air in this squad. He doesn't play in the standard keep pass. He likes to take a man on and do the transitional play. I just don't think he's going to get enough game time for City. You know what I mean? With all the players that we've got, and especially if we do sign Paqueta and if we do sign another attacking midfielder, which is not guaranteed. I'd like us to try and sign one. I just don't know where he plays, man. But I do think he's a mint player. You know?
No, he is. And look, it's a tricky one. I guess what I would say is there was a period when we had David Silva and De Bruyne and Bernardo Silva and Gundogan, and we were still able to get enough minutes for all four of them. Silva and De Bruyne being the main guys, and Gundogan and Bernardo were still able to get a decent amount of minutes. So that it can work. It definitely can.
That's fair, but I would also say Gundogan could fill in at number 6.
Yeah, and in my head, one of those players that we suggested would be doing that as well. Maybe even maybe even 2, depending on how they develop. Yeah, it's a tricky one, but we play a lot of games. If players want to be at City, that's great. If they don't, I think Nunes is a very versatile player. I think you can maybe do the double pivot job. You can play more advanced. We've seen him play out on the left. You can play a player on the right. You might even be able to do a job as a sort of inverted fullback. I don't know. I think there could be scope for him to play. Will he ever be the main guy? No, but he doesn't necessarily need to be. If he wants to have a good career at City, you've just got to be patient. He's never going to be the main guy at City. That's not necessarily an issue. Yeah, it's tricky. But look, this is Pep's thing, isn't it? Maybe he'll be like, well, actually, I do need to sell someone, or actually, we can't bring in X player because I want my small squad. But yeah, we'll just have to see, won't we? I suppose.
Absolutely. Right, what have you got? What have you got planned, bro? You got 2 weeks off now, innit? No football for 2 weeks.
Yes.
Man.
Well, I want to do an analysis video on why Kovacic is so important in our big games. So we're delving into the details of what we've discussed today. So I'll probably do that.
We need that, bro.
Yeah. So I'll do. But also, what I want, because it's an international break, I want to do a video of how I think Pep Guardiola would set up England and who do I think he'd pick. And that might be an interesting video. So
that'll be an interesting video, but it'll also stress me out when the video ends and I realize that we've still got Gareth Southgate. I'll be like, damn you nobbins for showing me what could have been.
Yeah, so that will be coming to my channel in the near future. Obviously, when the Arsenal City game happens, I'll be doing like a post-mortem stream and and probably an individual analysis video as well. That's in the pipeline on my channel.
Okay, cool. Well, guys, you know where to find Nobbins. Links in the description, or you can just type in Nobbins on the YouTube search button. Another episode of LBins done, ticked off, and I tell you what, the next LBins will either be celebrating or crying.
God, yeah, no in between.
There's literally no in between. So this could be the last time you see us with a big smile on our face on the LBins show. Guys, I hopefully enjoyed that stream, man. And if you did, smash a like on it. If you're watching back on replay, of course, let us know your comments in the comment section below. I got a watch along coming up in a bit for the Liverpool United game. I'm going to go live a bit earlier than normal. I'm going to go live at 3 o'clock because I want to speak about the game, a bit of build up before it kicks off at 3:30. And then it's going to be an interesting one. How do you see that one going? I honestly think United are going to get battered, man. These Liverpool fans who were like, oh, it's going to be a tough game. No. I'm like, shut up, man. Have some chest. I'll tell you what, considering the fact that they're weird, some of these Liverpool fans, very strange. They love to give it big and say, oh, we're going for quad, lads. We're going for quad. And then next thing, it's like, oh, we're going to United. It's going to be super tricky. It's like, fucking hell, mate. You can't talk about the quad and then go to United, one of the worst teams in the division, and go, oh, it's going to be super tricky. And now Casemiro's out for the game as well. I'm telling you, man, today, -2 on Liverpool. If you want easy cash, -2 Liverpool.
Yeah, it's going to be a slaughter.
Oh, mate, it's going to be embarrassing. You know what I mean? And Saeed going to the game on his crutch is just the funniest thing to imagine, honestly. So, there we go.
Oh, poor Saeed, man.
I know. Big up to you, bro. Thanks for coming on, man. Enjoy your 2 weeks, and maybe we'll try and get a stream in the middle of it somewhere if we've got time. But there's someone on the pitch. Oh, there's someone on the pitch, bro.
I imagine there's 22 people on the pitch plus the referee.
Nah, like a fan man on the pitch, bro. Oh wait, that was crazy. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up, people. Thank you very much for your support. As always, smash a like, subscribe to the channel. Big up to Cooler, Chicken Wing, LB, and of course, HSK with that $100 donation. And I'll see you in 55 minutes for Liverpool versus Man United. See you in a bit.